It's power rankings time in the Big 12, plus all the Big 12 talking heads are completely missing the point when it comes to Week 10 and the Big 12's chances in the college football playoff. I'm Pete Mundo. Welcome in. We are HeartlandCollegeSports.com. We appreciate you joining us as a part of the show. As always, if you're new, make sure you're subscribed. Or there's many of you who are here again for a second, third, fourth time, and you're still not subscribed. You just got here because, the algorithm brought you here or something. So now subscribe. Same thing on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave that comment, hit that thumbs up, and drop that 5-star rating and review. So appreciate you guys doing that, whether it's on YouTube or on the podcast. So I'm going to start with the power rankings. Thank you. I see your comments rolling in. I see the thumbs up being hit on Facebook and on YouTube as we speak. So keep those rolling through and make sure you're subscribed. I'll start with the power rankings, and then I will dive into what everybody is missing about the college football playoff conversation as it relates to the Big 12. For the power rankings, let's start at the bottom of the power rankings. At number 16, we have got the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Bottom of the barrel, in the basement. Once again, number 16. They lay an egg against Arizona State. The coaching stinks on both sides, all the way up to the top, where Mike Gundy says after the game, boy, I don't like the schemes. I mean, Mike, you're not a season ticket holder in Section 102, Row 25. You're the head freaking coach here. If you don't like the schemes, do something about it. And the fans haven't liked the schemes all season. So what are we waiting for here? What are we doing? My goodness. So all in all, I mean, it's a mess top to bottom for Oklahoma State. They're 0-6 in the Big 12, and there's no sign it's getting better anytime soon. Meantime, at number 15, Arizona actually dropping from 14 to 15. They move down. They give up 600 yards to UCF in a loss, missed 17 tackles, and it was the worst pro football focused college grade for Arizona in 2 years. Season low grades for rushing, coverage, overall defense, abysmal and embarrassing. That means Utah gets to move up from 15 to 14 for doing nothing on a bye week. Congratulations, Utah. At number 13 in the power rankings, I have got UCF. Now, you're going to be like, wait, UCF won, but they moved down. Well, yes, they did, in part because, well, they just beat one of the worst teams, and not just the Big 12, but the Power 4 right now in Arizona. They may have found their quarterback. I just can't give them too much credit for this win. I just can't. And there's a lot of things that happen in front of them that I can't move any of those teams below UCF because they beat up a bad Arizona team. At number 12, Kansas actually moving down one slot. They were on a bye week this past week, but listen, we'll see what happens in Arrowhead. They've got Iowa State this weekend. It might look like Jack Trice South. I'm just saying. West Virginia falls from 8 to 11. Also a team that slides despite being on a bye week. But listen, the teams in front of them have looked much more impressive. And here's the other problem for a team like West Virginia. Their wins look less impressive with each passing week. They have beaten Kansas, Oklahoma State, and Arizona. Those are three of the worst teams in the league. And Kansas is not much better. But Oklahoma and Arizona are horrible. And those are West Virginia's, I guess you'd call them, best wins this season. Not all that impressive. At number 10, Arizona State went to Stillwater and won. I keep them right in that number 10 slot where they were last week. So we will give Arizona State some credit. You get the win on the road coming off the bye week. I just can't really justify moving them up based on how bad Oklahoma State has been this season. So I've got them at number 10 in the power rankings this week. Meantime, number 9, TCU. They had a 2-game winning streak snapped on Saturday night. Baylor kicked a game-winning field goal as time expired. Good news, TCU did not have a single turnover, something that has plagued this team all season long. Bad news, the defense stinks. Couldn't stop a nosebleed in the second half. TCU falls from 7 to 9. Cincinnati drops from number 6 to number 8. They were on a bye week, but listen, a lot happened in this conference, a lot of moving parts, a lot of upsets in week 10. So Cincy has to slide down a couple of spots. And hey, you get a win over West Virginia. You're 4-2 in league play. That's a massive improvement over last year's opener in the Big 12. And you're very happy if you're a Cincinnati fan. You should be, especially if you get the win this weekend against the Mountaineers, which could be a nice little underrated rivalry in the Big 12. At number 6 in the power rankings, or number 7, excuse me. I don't want to jump over number 7. Number 7, I've got Kansas State falling from number 3. Kansas State was playing with fire in several games. Tulane, Colorado, Kansas, all come down to the wire and could have gone either way. And finally, K-State got picked off in a spot where they were double-digit favorites. It's a bad job, but at the same time, it felt like K-State was due. And now they've got 2 losses in the Big 12, and they're going to need some help to end up in Arlington at the end of the season. Not impossible, but definitely have to win out. Got to get Iowa State to lose a game at some point. But all in all, that is a tough loss for K-State's chances of getting to the Big 12 championship and ultimately getting to the college football playoff. Elsewhere, moving to number 6, Houston up from 13. Hey, Houston's won 3 of 4. Don't look now. To come back in the fourth quarter down 9 points and beat a very solid Kansas State team tells you a lot about this personal growth for Willie Fritz in this program. This is not something that would have happened a month ago for this team. They're gaining confidence. They're getting better. These guys are starting to gel and buy in, and man, it is a lot of fun to watch. A lot of fun. And Houston gets number 6 in the power rankings this week. Meantime, Baylor stays at number 5. They eke out a win over TCU on a last-second field goal. They have won 3 in a row. This after an 0-3 start to Big 12 play. They're back to 5-4 overall. And I believe that Dave Aranda saved his job for 2025 with that win over TCU, barring some kind of insane, epic collapse down the stretch here. At number 4 in the power rankings, Iowa State. They fall from number 2. And listen, you lose a game at home as a 13.5-point favorite. I can't keep you in that top 3. You got to drop a couple of places. Iowa State was also due, it felt like. The linebacking core was a soft spot, and the rushing defense had been suspect all season long. And Texas Tech should have given the ball to Taj Brooks more. I talked a lot about that in the reaction show on Sunday. If you missed it, if you are someone who is a radio listener, you can find that on the podcast or on the YouTube channel. Just search Heartland College Sports and you can find it there, because that is the one show a week that does not make it ultimately to the radio show. But anyway, Iowa State also was a team that was playing with a little bit of fire. I thought Tech, if they played their cards right, could get a win on the road. They did. I picked them to definitely cover the spread, but Iowa State falls to 4 in the power rankings this week. At number 3, Texas Tech, jumping from number 9 to number 3. That is one of the best wins in the Big 12. You go on the road. You beat an undefeated Iowa State Cyclones team. Tough place to win, tough place to play. And Texas Tech is able to get it done, and they come from behind late to do it. That's as good a win as you're going to see in this conference. And Texas Tech and Joy McGuire picked up the victory, and they moved to number 3 in the power rankings this week. And the defense is what helped them out in a big way. I would not have predicted that. The defense to step up for Texas Tech. At number 2 in the power rankings, we've got Colorado. Colorado was on a bye week, but they go from number 4 to number 2. And here's the thing. I mean, listen, the 2 teams in front of them lost. Iowa State lost and Kansas State lost. So I'm moving Colorado up, and now they head into a stretch where they are in the thick of the Big 12 championship race. And I don't know who would have seen that coming. Maybe the die-hard Colorado fan would have predicted that before the season, but a lot of people would not have. And now you look at this Colorado team going to Texas Tech in what is basically an elimination game in the Big 12 title race this Saturday. That game is on Big Fox, and it is going to be a heck of a lot of fun, and it's going to have a lot of hype around it as well. I can't wait for it. And then at number 1 in the power rankings, BYU. They had a bye. They were number 1 last week. There is no reason right now to move the Cougars off of that top spot. BYU comes in at number 1 in the power rankings this week. I'm Pete Mundo. We are Heartland College Sports. We appreciate you being here as always as a part of the show. Thumbs up, like it. We appreciate you guys doing it. Subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you so much for being a part of Heartland College Sports. So let me dive into the doomsdayers who are like, oh, it was a horrible Saturday for the Big 12. There's no way they can get 2 teams into the college football playoff. What are we going to do? The season's over. What are you talking about? I completely disagree with that take. The Big 12 still has as good of a chance to get 2 teams into the college football playoff as it had a couple of days ago. I don't believe a whole lot changed. Now, maybe you thought to yourself, hey, we're going to get undefeated Iowa State against undefeated BYU, and they're both going to get into the playoff no matter what. Well, first off, that was always wishful thinking. If you really thought this league was going to end up with undefeateds across the board, 2 of them, come on now. That was always highly unlikely. It was. I don't believe a whole lot's changed. In fact, there is a scenario and a situation where they still can very much so get 2 teams into the college football playoff. I still see that path, and there's multiple ways you can look at that. The first and most obvious way is BYU is undefeated in the Big 12 title game, and no matter what, I think they're in. If they win, obviously, they get that bye and a top 4 seed. If they lose it, they're going to be an at-large team at this point. I mean, I know this won't get nearly as much attention because it's not an SEC or Big Ten program, but there are only right now 5 teams in college football with wins over 2 current ranked teams. And BYU is one of them. BYU, SMU, Georgia, Oregon, Notre Dame. Those are the only 5 teams in college football with wins over 2 currently ranked teams. So if BYU is undefeated and they get to a Big 12 championship game, they're in win or lose. Now, they want the bye, so they'll have plenty to play for, but I believe they're going to be in. And what happened on Saturday with the upsets, what does that now mean? Well, that now means that the Big 12 has opened up the door to teams that didn't look like they had a chance of making the Big 12 championship game. Colorado was a long shot because of their head-to-head loss to Kansas State. They're now squarely in the mix. Texas Tech beats Iowa State. They're 4-2. They're right in the thick of the race. If they beat Colorado on Saturday, we're talking about the Red Raiders possibly going to Arlington, right? That's entirely possible. Kansas State is still very much in the mix. It's much harder, but they're still in the conversation. Got to win out, got to beat Iowa State. Probably need a little bit of help around there, but they're in the conversation. And then you got to look at it and you got to say there's 3 teams that are 3-2. And they're all long shots. 2 of them play each other this weekend, West Virginia and Cincinnati. And then Arizona State hosts UCF. But 2 of those 3 teams are going to be 4-2 after this weekend. And they'll say, yeah, it's probably crazy, but yeah, if there is total chaos, why not us? Now, the only pathway for teams with more than 1 loss to get there is going to be to have to win the Big 12 championship, right? So everybody outside of Iowa State needs to win the Big 12 championship if they're going to get to the college football playoff. So that's Colorado, K-State, Texas Tech. And then if you want to throw in the others, Cincinnati, Arizona State, West Virginia, go ahead and do it. I don't think those 3 have a chance, but if you want to just play the game for now, play the game for now. BYU and Iowa State, as of this point in time, are the only teams who might be able to find themselves in a situation where they lose a Big 12 championship game and make the college football playoff. BYU, because right now they're undefeated, and Iowa State, because they have one loss by 1 point. But everybody else has at least 2 overall losses. Colorado's 4-1 in the Big 12, but they're 6-2 overall. They've got that loss to Nebraska, which unfortunately for them does not look like a good loss. But I think if Colorado plays Nebraska right now, it's a completely different ballgame. Colorado's probably favored by a touchdown, if not close to it, over Colorado at a neutral site today. That's how much better Colorado's gotten. But we knew that Colorado, if they were going to meet some of the lofty expectations, were going to have to develop as the season went along because they had so many new faces, so many new transfers. They were going to take time to mesh and gel. That was always going to be the case. But I don't sit here right now all that distraught in the Big 12's chances of making 2 teams into the college football playoff because, one, I always thought it was a fool's errand to sit there and think that the Big 12 was going to have 2 undefeateds. I mean, do you watch this conference? Even BYU. I mean, if I were to bet on BYU going undefeated right now, okay, they've got games left against Utah, Kansas, Arizona State, and Houston. I would not bet on BYU going undefeated. Now, they'll be favored in every game. They should win every game. But this is the Big 12. We've been around this conference. Maybe you haven't, but I've been around the conference a long time. And the reality is you see crazy stuff every weekend. And while BYU being undefeated is the best case scenario for the Big 12 to get 2 teams in, they've got to go into that Big 12 championship game undefeated to probably get the 2 in. I don't sit here like, oh my gosh, because I didn't expect it. I didn't. And it's still entirely possible, depending on how BYU loses a game, if they do lose one, there still is a scenario where they have 1 loss. Maybe Iowa State goes in with 1 loss, and you can get both teams into the college football playoff because so much of it is also dependent with what happens around you, right? In the SEC, in the Big Ten, in the ACC. All of that stuff is also what matters when you look at what's going to happen here down the home stretch of the college football season. So it is ridiculous, and D. Wayne puts this up. Pete, why is it when the SEC beats each other, the media says, OMG, the conference is so good, see? But when the Big 12 beats each other, it's like, see, the Big 12 sucks. No, that is a great question and an excellent point. It's something I've been pushing back on for years when it comes to how people perceive the Big 12 and what this conference is really all about. It's always that way. The Big 12 is just a bunch of mediocre teams beating each other up. Oh, the SEC, I mean, you know, to stay family friendly here, but you can imagine what I'm doing. They are pleasuring themselves at the thought of the SEC and upsets happening in that conference. It is just comical on its face. And that's why, too, they have this ridiculous AP poll set up where they can cannibalize each other, claim it's a good win because it's a ranked win, or claim it's a good loss because it's a ranked loss, and they barely get punished for it. The Big 12's problem right now is just that it doesn't have the blue bloods. And as a result, the old guard in college football media is not going to give this conference the respect that it should have. But when you look at things, and this was put up by one of the folks that works for the Big 12, Clark Williams, he posted this, and it was one of the rating systems that got used in the BCS. The Sagarin, am I saying that right? Rating system. They rank the ratings based on just average, and it's, you know, some super complex number thing that they put together. But anyway, the point is, they've got the Big 12 as the second best conference in college football after the SEC, and just barely ahead of the Big 10 and a couple of points ahead of the ACC. So that's what that rating system has right now. I'm not going to say they all have it, but at least that one's got it. So that's got to be worth something, does it not? It should be. If we're being honest about the Big 12, it's not a bunch of mid teams. Like I saw, who was it? One of our guys wrote about it from Barstool. Brandon Walker, I think it was, wrote about it. And he said the Big 12 is 14 average teams beating each other up. It's like, bro, first off, we got 16. You're supposed to be like Barstool's college football guru. And two, when did Barstool become mainstream sports and just a mouthpiece of all the other major college football talking head outlets? I thought you guys were edgy. I thought you guys were against the grain. And when I've got data clearly showing that the Big 12 is far from just 14 mid-tier teams beating each other up, 14 average teams. Oh, it's 16, by the way. When you've got the data to back it up and you just have big mouths who will become nothing more than shills for the SEC and the Big Ten, I don't have any respect for you. I have zero respect for guys like that because they don't even do their homework. They're just like, oh, it's Houston. Oh, it's Baylor. Oh, it's Texas Tech. Oh, it's BYU. They literally are just getting their talking points from the same people that they built their brand off hating and making fun of. And now that's them. Now they're part of that whole ecosystem of major media that doesn't actually pay attention and doesn't use the data to back up what the hell's going on in this sport. So we're going to have to do it here at Heartland College Sports. And if you have not subscribed after that rant, I hope that you will on YouTube, on the podcast. That's worth a 5-star rating on Apple, wouldn't you say? Come on now, hit it and hit the thumbs up as well on YouTube. I will wrap up this show with comments many of you are asking about. And that is Mike Gundy. I'm Pete Mundo on Heartland College Sports. Thank you for being here as a part of the show. Mike Gundy made some eye-popping comments during a Zoom press conference on Monday. Not a great look for the Oklahoma State head coach. Mike Gundy was talking about criticism and, things that have gone on this year for the Oklahoma State Cowboys. And Gundy was asked about using the ups and the downs from his time as an assistant and if it helps during times like this. And Mike Gundy had a very long-winded answer. And part of that answer included the following quote: "In most cases, the people who are negative and voicing their opinions are the same ones who can't pay their own bills. They're not taking care of themselves. They're not taking care of their own family." Now, if you read the full transcript of this, what you'll see is that I don't believe Mike Gundy was talking exclusively about Oklahoma State fans. I think he was talking about the broader picture of college football and everything that goes into it. And yes, fans being ornery and fans wanting every team of theirs to win every single game. But those fans are always going to be there. Are they unreasonable in some cases? Absolutely. But Mike Gundy making a comment like that, whether it's about college football fans in general or Oklahoma State fans specifically, is a horrible look. And there is no other way to spin that. And I am a diehard Mike Gundy fan. When Mike Gundy got into crap for wearing political paraphernalia a few summers ago, remember that whole thing? Chuba Hubbard called him out. He had on a T-shirt for a TV network that, some people on one side of the political aisle don't care for. I was like, are you kidding me? I defended Mike Gundy. The media came after him. It was completely ridiculous. This, I'm not sitting here and saying it's fireable. Like I saw some OU fans being like, Brent Venables will be fired for this. Oh, come on. Get off your high horse, would you please? Stop with that. But it is continuing a theme of an aloofness that I think is setting in for Mike Gundy that is concerning. When you get to that point as a head coach anywhere and you've had his level of success and people get to the point where you are larger than life, you are statuesque, you can do nothing wrong, you walk on water, that can be a dangerous place for the wrong person to be who maybe doesn't have that introspection. And that's part of what I think Mike Gundy is lacking right now. I noticed it was some of the comments after the game in the loss to Arizona State when he talked specifically about not liking some of the schemes, to now comments like this about fans in general. I'm not going to go full-blown outrage. How dare you insult? I mean, I don't know exactly what was in his heart. I don't think Oklahoma State fans are what Mike Gundy, suggests they are. And I don't think Mike Gundy feels that way about Oklahoma State fans. But Mike Gundy's always been a guy that just shoots off the hip. And there's some good with that, and there can be some not so good with that. And here's the problem for him. When things get this bad, it's not what people are looking for, right? It's fun when times are good. It's funny when times are good. When times are bad, the Mike Gundy style personality and way of running a program can start to rub a lot of people the wrong way. And as he goes through this season, and I would say it's indisputably the worst season of his career as a head coach, this is the kind of stuff that's going to fan the flames. And the reason it's his worst season as a head coach is for the simple reason that the expectations were so high. I mean, they were picked by many people to make the college football playoff because they'd win the Big 12 conference. I didn't have them in the Big 12 championship game. I thought it was too much. But, I mean, you look at Mike Gundy and what he's done. His first year in the Big 12, he went 4-7 overall and 1-7 in the Big 12. Well, of course, there are 9 conference games in the Big 12. He's got 3 left to play, and it's entirely possible that this team goes 0-9. Like, they might pick up a win, but you look at the schedule for Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas Tech, Colorado, they are staring 0-9 right in the face. And if Mike Gundy doesn't make some changes at the very least, then that would signal to me he's going to make this difficult on his bosses. And I'll just add this, that would not surprise me in the least. There are certain people that you can see leaving amicably and ending a 2-decade tenure amicably. And Mike Gundy doesn't really strike me as the kind of guy who would want to necessarily go out that way. He should, right? I'm not saying it's now. I'm saying whenever that day comes, he should. It's a no-brainer. Mike Gundy can be a god in Stillwater till the day he dies. If this thing doesn't end ugly, I don't want it to. But he's looking at a 0-9 season, and he's talking about fans who can't pay the bills a day after he's talking about how he doesn't like the schemes for the team that he's the head coach of. It's not been a good 48 hours for him. And there's nothing to suggest the next 4 weeks are going to be any better. I'm Pete Mundo on Heartland College Sports. Thank you guys for being here, as always, as a part of the show. We appreciate you. Make sure you hit that like button, hit the thumbs up as well, and subscribe to the channel and the show. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you soon. Go Big 12.